If anybody asks why I look like I just came back from some type of active service, I'm just gonna tell them that I came back from the Belt Wars. God, that is, that is such a that is such a bad joke. That's like a 20 grade joke. Anyway, let's talk some Giants baseball. A couple of injury-related items to get to before jumping into today's game. The biggest of them being that backup catcher Tom Murphy is dealing with a mid-back disc herniation. I believe I didn't write down what type of shot he got beforehand. I think it was some type of epidural. It was something of that nature. Not great. I think that's the best way to summarize it. He'll be reevaluated in a couple weeks, and considering that opening day is on March 27th, today is March 24th, that likely puts him out of the running to make the opening day roster. We talked to Bob Melvin upon receiving the news of Murphy being out for a couple weeks, and he said that it's a definite possibility that Murphy isn't going to be on the opening day roster. And that leaves Sam Huff and Max Stassi as the two leading candidates to take up the backup catcher position. If you had to pick between one of the two right now, I would be more inclined to give the edge to Huff. Not only does he have team control, not only is he younger, but he's already on the 40-man roster. Stassi, by comparison, is not on the 40-man roster, meaning the Giants would have to designate someone for assignment in order to get him on the roster. We mentioned yesterday that Huff had a really good first game of Cactus League play, hitting the home run and winning the ABS challenge system, but there are a lot of games left to be played over the course of the next couple of weeks, so we'll just have to see how that battle shakes out. On a more encouraging note, Elliot Ramos, who's been dealing with a mild right oblique strain, he started throwing today. He's going to start hitting on Thursday, and he could be appearing in games as soon as next week. Eric Miller, we had heard from manager Bob Melvin that he had been dealing with numbness in one of the fingers, and when you just hear numbness, that's not exactly great, but we had an opportunity to talk to him earlier today, and he said that it's not numbness, it's more so inflammation at the top of his left middle finger. He said that he had dealt with something similar in his ring finger earlier in the offseason, and it was something that went away after a couple of days. He believes it's the same thing in this case. I think he went so far as to say that it wasn't a big deal at all. If everything went according to schedule, he threw a live bullpen today, so we'll check up on that tomorrow. And Tyler Fitzgerald has progressed to doing all baseball activities, and we should potentially see him in games sometime this weekend. Speaking of games, the Giants tie over here at Scottsdale Stadium with the Colorado Rockies. Over out in Tempe, they lost to the Los Angeles Angels 7-4. Of course, I can only be in one place at one time. The thing with split squads is you kind of have to pick and choose where you want to go. You're always going to be inclined to stay with the home game just because, for the very obvious reason, you do not have to travel on the road. But also today provided us with an opportunity to see Justin Verlander for the first time. Now, we've seen him a couple times over the course of these first couple weeks of spring in bullpens, in live bullpens, but this is an opportunity to see him in actual in-game scenarios. And one thing that I've discussed multiple times, both in my video breakdown and in previous videos that we've done leading up to this start, is what was his velocity going to look like? Of course, we talked about how last season was one of the lowest velocities that he's had of his major league career. I want to say that last season was the first time his velocity didn't touch at least 94 miles an hour since 2015. I think last year the total was 93.5 miles an hour, and I think 2015 it was 93.4 miles an hour. He's always kind of sat in that mid to high 90s range, not that low 90s range. And today, if you were looking solely at velocity and nothing else, the velocity looked really good. I want to say he threw 18 four-seam fastballs. And again, we don't have the StatCast data for this, so I had to do all this by hand, which entailed making sure that after every fastball, I looked directly at the scoreboard and jotted it down. But he threw 18 four-seam fastballs, had an average velocity of, I want to say it was 94.8 miles per hour, and he topped out, not at 96 miles per hour technically, at 95.97 miles per hour, according to the Scottsdale Stadium scoreboard. But between me and you, we'll just round that up to 96 miles an hour. He did allow a solo home run to Michael Toglia over his 2 innings of work, but that was the only blip on his resume. Although he did say that even, considering this is a spring training game and his stats in the grand scheme of his career are very meaningless and have no bearing on his roster status, he did say that after allowing the home run to Toglia, he was not going to be getting a lot of sleep that night, which I guess if you're a future Hall of Famer, To be different, you got to be different. This start was also interesting for Verlander from the perspective of he experienced a couple firsts for the first time. That just rolls off the tongue really well. The first being that today was the first. I can't stop saying first. Anyways, today was the first time that Verlander has thrown in a Cactus League game, because think of the teams that he's played for previously. The Detroit Tigers play in the Grapefruit League, and the Houston Astros play in the Grapefruit League as well. And side note, as someone that has covered now both the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League is far superior just based solely on geography, not having to drive an hour and a half to play any team. It's just beautiful. It is just beautiful. But anyhow, it was Verlander's first opportunity to pitch in the Cactus League, and he also experienced another first, that being the ball falling out of his glove while he was standing on the rubber and had a runner on first base, which resulted in a balk. So again, the phrase that we love to throw around is that it is indeed spring training for everybody. And of course, with this game happening at Scottsdale Stadium, it was not televised. I know a lot of you didn't have the opportunity to see what Verlander looked like, but if you want to see what Verlander's outing looked like, I did post a video earlier today that was kind of a supercut of every pitch that he threw over the course of the day. I don't have all the information, such as pitch breakdown and velocities and things like that, but if you just solely want to see what it looked like and see the results, that's at your disposal. And again, while Scottsdale Stadium was the place to be, not only for me, that rhymed, and every other person on the Giants beat, it is worth noting that the best swing of the afternoon, at least among Giants hitters, happened in Tempe, where Marco Luciano just hit an absolute no-doubter that almost cleared the batter's eye there. And again, in Tempe, in that stadium, they don't have StatCast capabilities either. I don't think there's an estimated distance, but if you just do a little bit of math, considering that it's 420 feet to center field and the ball almost cleared the batter's eye, that ball was probably somewhere in the 430, 440 foot range. So an impressive swing of the bat for Marco Luciano, especially as he's trying to make this team as a fourth outfielder. And to wrap up with someone who is not trying to make, well, he is trying to make the team, but he does not have to compete for it. Jung-Hoo Lee hit his first home run of the spring as well, just kind of scraping one over the right field fence right here. And Melvin said that Lee looked far more comfortable today compared to his first Cactus League game on Saturday, especially given that, as we mentioned previously, Saturday was Lee's first game against other Major League competition in nearly 9 months.